Welcome back, Airbnb family. Today we're talking about hostels and what you can learn from them in order to improve your Airbnb business. And we've got some extra tips for you from Belgrade, Serbia, from a Airbnb we're staying at today. All right, so welcome back. We're in Belgrade, Serbia, which is the last city of my vacation tour in Europe. We hit Istanbul, we hit Prague, we hit a couple cities in Croatia, and now Belgrade. And it's my last few days. My birthday was yesterday. Kind of sad to go, but all things come to an end. So what I want to talk to you about today is our experience first with hostels, and then something we've learned at this Airbnb already, which is actually kind of cool. So to catch you up, if you don't know what a hostel is, the main model is it's a multi-bedroom establishment, and you can either rent a private room or a shared room in Airbnb terms. In hostels, they call this a dorm. A dorm is where you rent a bed where there might be 6 or 8 beds in the room. And if you do this, you pay usually $5, $7, $10 American, US dollars per night to stay. If you get a private room, it depends on how many beds are in the room, but you might pay like $12 or $15 per person, or you'll pay $35 for the room. There's different pricing models depending on the hostel. So I did shoot some video at the hostel, but the hostel just did not look good. And this is one thing I should mention is hostels aren't necessarily designed to be pretty. They're designed to give a certain experience and a certain amount of functional amenities, but also give you really price competitive travel. So the reason why people use hostels is, one, of course, that you can't beat the price usually, but two, the hostel really cares about their travelers and giving them a good experience locally. So it's like having a tour guide that is your host, right? And you also get to interact with other guests. So hostels have shared living spaces, like the kitchen, the bathrooms are shared, the living room's shared, like the TV, everything. And they also tend to have little events or social things to try to bring their travelers together. And this is one thing that hostels do really, really well, is they have found a way to bring people together at a cheap price, but then of course they make their money, on an 8-bedroom. If they're charging people $10 a night, they're making $80 a night. And in some of these countries that we're staying in, like for example, I'm in this Airbnb right now, and there's 10 beds in here, right? 10 total beds. And I paid 76 US dollars per night for the whole place. So the cost of living in Serbia is super, super low. So 80 US a night for a fully maxed out dorm is actually really good money here. So things that they do though in these hostels in order to help kind of propagate their business model is they label everything. Over every cabinet, every drawer, every door, there's like signs that say that, the dishes are here. Remember to wash your dishes. Checkout time is at 10 a.m. There are bikes for your use. Here's the rules for the bikes. They have little little updates, like, hey, we're doing a walk on this day. There's this tour guide company that's going to be in this neighborhood every Tuesday. And just everything is pretty much spelled out on the walls. So as you exist in this hostel, if somebody forgot to tell you something, it's all written somewhere. And that's what hostels do really well. Also, every hostel we've been to on this trip, they've greeted us with alcohol. And in Serbia, the local alcohol, kind of like their own version of moonshine, is called Rakidzich. They all make their own Rakidzich. Everybody does. And what's funny about this is my last name is Rakidzich, which means to make Rakidzich. So every time I check in and they give me Rakidzich and then I hand them my passport, it's been kind of a little punchline. So fun fact. So now we're in a Airbnb here. Of course, we're running some video because I already shot some video of it. One thing that I found most interesting about this Airbnb is they've got a price list. So what they do is they have this sheet of paper that says if you want to use anything in the property that's not just regular coffee and stuff, this is how much money it is. So they've left scotch here, bottled water, juices, fruits, little bottles of alcoholic whiskeys and other things, and wine and champagne. And all these things are listed that if you use one of these, this is how much it's going to cost you. Now, we can only speculate on how they control this. But I guess what they probably do is take photos of everything before the reservation. And they would have to, in order to instantiate this, they'd have to actually send it in a message. Camera moved. So back into it. Let's recap. Hostels are multi-bedroom establishments, and they're a good model for certain cities, but not all cities are hostel friendly. Even though there are hostels in the United States, they're just not necessarily a sure thing. So If you're going to use a hostel approach, you'd want to use it as part of a mixed strategy. So if you have a 5-bedroom house, you'll make the most money if you rent out the whole place, because that's really what separates Airbnb from hotels, is you can have a group of 15 or 20 people stay. Everybody's happy. That's where you make all of your money. But you don't always get large groups. You're going to have days that are open. So let's say 7 or 10 days out, you still have this unbooked property and there's a high likelihood that you won't get a good group at a good premium. You could have your one main listing, but then you have a bunch of small shared rooms and private room listings that you use to like gobble up the space. And I would do this kind of like as a last minute fix for, if you can't get the main one booked. Now there are ways to link accounts. So what basically you're going to do is you're going to link them together. So at the last 5 days, if somebody books the whole place, cool, it shuts down all the little private rooms. But the moment somebody books a private room or shared room, it would actually shut down the main big listing. So nobody could book the entire place, and that would prevent you from double booking. So if you mix that in as a last minute, hey, I've got this huge space, but it doesn't have full occupancy with groups, you could do the whole dorm hostel thing and get 100% occupancy that way. You can incorporate a price list here. What I would do though is I would line everything up that is for sale, and I would put the sheet in front of it. I would take a photo, and I would put it somewhere where people wouldn't just move it, right? Because it's in the way. Put it somewhere where if it has been moved, it's more like an intentional thing, because really what you're gonna have to do is argue with Airbnb going, hey, this is what somebody took and I need to request money from them if they don't pay it. And if you don't collect a deposit, you're one further step away from collecting that money. But the one fact is, if you collect a deposit, it's not actually charged to the guest yet. So you could take a deposit, which is a right to dip into a certain amount of money, but they still haven't charged the card, which means somebody could also not have money, which is a thin thing, but it still matters. Let me give you some shots of the city now too. I'm sure you all want to know what Belgrade looks like. It's a wonderful city. It's kind of underdeveloped in Central Europe because they're not part of the European Union yet, because Serbia doesn't like to change as much as other countries in Europe. Thank you for watching Airbnb Automated, and I will see you on the other side.